Good afternoon, Hattiesburg. Thanks for joining us for this COVID-19 and City News briefing for Monday, December 14th. We're going to start with the boil water notice that we talked about on Friday. During Friday's briefing, I mentioned around noon on Friday, we received word from the Department of Health that one of the 50 samples that we send in every month for testing had come back with contaminant for E. coli. We believed at the time that it was isolated to one sample site, but to prove that, we had to do 60 tests immediately after that at sample sites at that site that was contaminated, but also around that. And so we took those 60 samples on Friday. We received the test back on Saturday night. All were clear. We did an additional 60 samples, which is what the Department of Health requires, on Saturday, and then we received those results last night, and they came back all clear. And at that point, Bonner Analytical, who is the local lab that we use, in conjunction with the Department of Health, officially lifted the boil water notice for the city of Hattiesburg. I want you to know that your water is safe. It always has been. There was never any evidence that there was E. coli in the actual water system. One of 50 sample sites, the sample collected there, had E. coli in it. And even though the water system was always safe, we did have to follow the requirements of a state boil water notice. And so we're trying to use this opportunity to learn as well. And so one thing that we're looking at now is, instead of using 80 sample sites that are usually outside spigots, which is typically what happens when you have one problem site, we're looking at moving that sample collection point closer to the water main, so that getting a good sample does not depend on the quality of somebody's plumbing on the outside of their building. We're also working to build a stronger relationship with Bonner Analytical to include them in the testing process as well, so that if there is a problem, we can try and correct it before that sample goes off to the Department of Health. We're also trying to establish a stronger relationship and a better process, as when there is a problem with one sample out of 50, we're not giving a boil water notice to the entire city. And so those are things that we're taking from this process, but know that your water is safe. A year ago, when our entire water system was evaluated, we scored a perfect score. And every month we submit 50 samples for testing on our water system, and every month before December, those all came back clear. And then, of course, with this incident, the 120 samples that we've done over the weekend have come back clear, so you can have confidence in the quality of Hattiesburg's drinking water. Let's move over to COVID, and we'll start with hospitalizations, because this is the thing that is concerning us the most right now. As of today, we have 108 people between Merit Health, Wesley, and Forest General who were tested positive for COVID, and that's 14 over where we've been for the last 2 weeks. And of those 108, 27 of them are in the ICU, which is actually down a few from over the last 2 weeks. As you can see, we keep adding lines to this graph, and it's proving problematic, because the spike we saw in the summer, we got to 100, I think, 2 times, and now we've been there for several days in a row now in this spike. Statewide today, we have 1,648 new cases with 5 new deaths, and unfortunately, both Forest and Lamar counties saw deaths over the weekend. Death was reported in Forest County on Saturday, and 1 death was reported in Lamar County on Sunday, and we send our thoughts and condolences to those families. This brings the totals to date to 92 in Forest County and 52 in Lamar County. New positive cases, there were many over the weekend. Forest County saw 134 total, with 44 on Saturday, 53 on Sunday, and 37 today. Lamar County saw 124 new cases, and that came from 50 on Saturday, 53 on Sunday, 21 today. So 258 new positive cases reported over the weekend in Hattiesburg, bringing the totals to date to 4,503 in Forest County and 3,468 in Lamar County. Our 5-day average continues to go up, and we're adding more lines to this one. If you look at the spike that we saw in late July and August, the highest we got to in terms of 5-day average, the number of, the average of new positive cases for the metro area, was in the low to mid 60s. We are nearing 100 now, and that's just how much more consequential this spike has been compared to the one in the summer. The other thing that's concerning us is this inside 14-day number. Again, the inside 14-day number points to how many potentially active cases you have in your community, because you can see how many active cases, how many new cases have been reported in the last 2 weeks. And so in Forest County, that number now stands at 621, and Lamar County, that number is at 502. You can see, just comparing this spike to the one we saw in the summer, during the summer spike, we got to a little over 800 active cases at one time. we're well past 1,100 now. That's a significant problem for us, and what that's going to mean over the next couple of weeks. And just compared to a week ago, last Monday we were at 495 inside 14 days for Forest County. That number is now 621. A similar 125-ish increase for Lamar County. So all in all, we've gone from 882 potential active cases to 1,123 active cases in just 1 week. Hospitalizations, similar increase. We have seen our ICU admissions go down. We hope that's a trend that's going to continue. I know there are some new therapeutics that are out there that our medical staff are trying to use to kind of keep people out of the ICU, but still a concerning trend here, because our goals remain the same: protecting the vulnerable, preventing the overrun of the healthcare system, and prioritizing public health while giving the private sector the space to operate creatively. Just an update on hospital capacity. As of this morning, Forest General had 12 acute beds available and 7 ICU beds available if they could stretch their staff to that many. Merit Health Wesley has 8 acute beds available and 2 more ICU beds if they stretch their staff. And so, again, hospital capacity changes throughout the day. You typically start at a point in the morning, then you discharge a lot. For example, in the case of Forest General, they may discharge 80, 100 people. And then in the afternoon, especially toward the 5 o'clock hour, as surgeries come out, as ER visits turn into hospitalizations, you'll start to see that capacity tighten more. The bottom line here is bad trends are continuing. We've had 6 consecutive days of setting new records for active COVID cases in our metro area, and these are not the records you want to set. 6 days in a row, we've hit new highs in this pandemic. And the problem is those new highs of active cases will eventually translate into hospitalizations, and we're seeing that now. 6 of the past 7 days, our COVID hospitalizations have exceeded 100. And if it was just, hospitals being filled with COVID patients, while that's a challenge, that's a controllable challenge. But when you have folks who are there for heart attacks and strokes and for other ailments, you really start to limit what your hospital capacity is, and you start stretching your staff. So the challenge here for all of us is to have a better week, because this is winnable. This morning, we saw that the first 5 people received their COVID vaccine, a historic moment at the Department of Health. So the next round will be our healthcare workers and then our first responders. The whole idea is this is winnable, but if we get sloppy and if we don't do what is necessary to slow the spread, we're going to lose a lot of people unnecessarily if we just do those things that we know work: practicing social distancing, wearing masks, avoiding unnecessary gatherings. We can hold out until the vaccine gets here and is available widespread for all the vulnerable and for everyone in our population. So that's my challenge to you this week. We also want to send our heartfelt sympathies and condolences to the family of Joel Miles. Joel Miles was mayor of Wiggins, and he passed away last night from COVID-19. I know that a community gets close to their mayor, and Joel was in his 2nd term, and so to the city of Wiggins, their employees, to all his friends, but particularly his wife and family, we send our heartfelt condolences on the loss of Mayor Miles. And finally, our act of courage today. Oftentimes throughout this pandemic, we have spotlighted people and organizations who are doing great things to try and make life a little bit easier and protect people as best they can during a really tough time. One of those organizations that we don't think enough is Forest County Emergency Management. And I can say the same thing about Lamar County Emergency Management as well. But Forest County Emergency Management is on our conference calls each week, every Wednesday. They have dealt with not only COVID, but they've also dealt with several natural disasters this year. They did a mask giveaway on Saturday, and they gave away 18,500 masks. They also gave away 1,000 bottles of hand sanitizer and made 100 deliveries to the elderly and shut-in who needed masks and hand sanitizer as well. To Glenn and his team, we are so grateful. We don't say thank you enough. But you are on the front lines, and you are as valuable as anyone that we have in our community right now in trying to keep our county and our city safe. We also want to salute our city employees. On this past weekend, every department seemed like they had big tasks to do. Water and Sewer was out collecting samples trying to get this boil water notice lifted. Sanitation crews were out picking up the many piles of debris that have popped up throughout this year, and especially in this fall season. Parks and Recreation crews and Public Works crews were putting out luminaries for Victorian Christmas. The fire department was helping with that as well. The fire department had to respond to a couple of different structure and house fires. Police, of course, were doing their thing, as they do every day, try and keep our community safe. And I know this has been a really tough year for everyone. Everyone is stepping up, but I want the city of Hattiesburg to know that you have a little over 600 of the most dedicated public servants that any community could ask for, and I challenge you, when you see someone who works for the city, tell them thank you for the work they do, because we could not do anything that we do as a community without them. As we continue on in the week, remember to wash your hands, take care of yourself, wear a mask if you go out in public, do only what is essential, and remember, you're safer at home. Have a great evening.